What if I told you that reclaiming your self-respect doesn't start with confrontation, grand gestures, or proving others wrong, but with silence? That the power you've been seeking outside yourself has been quietly slipping through the cracks of unnecessary words, apologies, and concessions. Marcus Aurelius faced the same silent battle you're fighting right now. But his answer wasn't what you'd expect. It wasn't force. It wasn't anger. It was presence. It was control over his own mind. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul, he wrote. Imagine standing in a crowded room, feeling your voice drown under expectations, judgments, and obligations you never agreed to. That tight knot in your chest, the one that tells you, "I shouldn't speak up," is the quiet thief of your dignity. Epictetus warned, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And this is the first truth. Self-respect is not given, it is taken. It is quietly reclaimed in the spaces where you refuse to bend unnecessarily. Tonight, we'll uncover 7 subtle signs that your self-respect is slipping away, and how you can begin to reclaim it, not with rage, but with silent, deliberate power. Each sign will feel like a mirror, reflecting truths you've sensed but never admitted. And each revelation will show you that the strength to reclaim yourself has always been within, waiting for your quiet permission. The question is, are you ready to see yourself clearly, to face the moments where you've surrendered too easily, and to take the first step toward reclaiming your power? If so, lean in, because the journey begins with one realization, and it begins now. The first subtle sign that you are losing self-respect is deceptively quiet. You over-apologize. Not for genuine mistakes, not for moments of real error, but for simply existing, for speaking, for taking up space. Picture a man walking down the street, shoulders slightly hunched, murmuring, "Sorry for every accidental bump." Ridiculous, isn't it? And yet, how often do we do this in our own lives, bowing under the weight of imagined judgment? Seneca once observed, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." Every unnecessary apology is your imagination convincing you that your existence is an offense. Consider the small moments. You interrupt yourself mid-sentence because someone looks impatient, or you apologize after stating a preference. "Sorry, I'd rather not." Even when you have every right. Each tiny apology chips away at the fortress of your dignity. Over time, it becomes invisible to you, but others sense it. They begin to expect it. And every time you cave, your nervous system reinforces a pattern, shrinking, silencing, diminishing. Here's the solution hook hidden inside this sign. The next time you feel the urge to apologize unnecessarily, pause. Count to 3. Remind yourself that your voice, your space, and your choices are not burdens. This small act, refusing to apologize for being, is your first act of silent rebellion, your first claim to self-respect. And if you think that's all, think again, because over-apologizing is only the beginning. What comes next is quieter, more insidious, and far more damaging. But it's also the key that opens the door to reclaiming your power. This next sign will make you question every habit, every thought you believed was harmless. And once you see it, you'll never ignore it again.
The second subtle sign that your self-respect is quietly slipping away is people-pleasing. You know the pattern. A text you didn't want to send, a favor you didn't want to do, a smile you force when every fiber of your being screamed no. You do it to avoid conflict, to be liked, to feel safe. But in reality, every compromise erodes the foundation of your own soul. Marcus Aurelius reflected, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Yet, how often do you bend your own truth just to maintain the fragile comfort of others? Picture a young man in the agora of ancient Rome, seeking validation from merchants and senators alike. Each nod, each yes to another's request grants them power over him, while he walks away thinking he is being kind. The lesson? Kindness without boundaries is not virtue, it is surrender. In modern terms, the neuroscience is clear. Repeated suppression of your authentic desires rewires your brain to associate self-denial with safety. You feel valued only when others approve. And slowly, you forget what it feels like to value yourself. Think back to your own life, the times you swallowed your opinion at work, feigned excitement for someone else's plan, or stayed silent to avoid discomfort. Each moment was another brick taken from the walls of your self-respect. And here's the cruelest part. Others often don't see it. They don't notice your sacrifice. They only feel your compliance and assume it is who you are. But here is the glimmer of power hidden within this sign. Recognizing the pattern is the first act of rebellion. The next time someone expects your unthinking compliance, pause. Reflect. Speak the truth, even in small ways, even softly. Zeno of Citium said, "Well-being is attained little by little, and nevertheless is no little thing itself." Each refusal to people-please is a reclamation of self, a quiet but undeniable victory. And yet, people-pleasing is merely the doorway. Beyond it lies a third, far more invasive sign, one that creeps into your very thoughts, that shapes how you see yourself, even when you are alone. The moment you encounter it, you will realize that all the apologies and all the forced smiles have been leading to this revelation. The journey is only deepening, and the next step is more powerful than the first two combined.
The third subtle sign that your self-respect is slipping away is avoiding conflict at all costs. You think you are being peaceful or mature, but in reality, you are letting your own voice, your values, your boundaries dissolve into the background. Epictetus warned, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And yet, when you avoid conflict, you are surrendering your reaction entirely. You're allowing the world to shape your life while you shrink silently inside yourself. Picture a young Roman senator during the Senate debates, his hands trembling, his mind screaming truths, yet his mouth remains silent because he fears judgment, exile, or ridicule. He leaves the chamber, bowing to the comfort of conformity, carrying in his chest the heavy weight of unspoken truth. This is exactly how avoiding conflict manifests in our modern lives. You let colleagues steamroll your ideas, friends take liberties with your time, partners cross boundaries, and each time, a piece of your inner authority fades. Think of the silent moments. A harsh word goes unchallenged, an injustice you witness but don't speak against, a disrespectful comment you swallow. The tiny tremors of avoidance ripple, teaching your nervous system that silence is safer than assertion. Over months, years, decades, it creates a default mode where your self-respect doesn't just waver, it erodes. Here is the solution hidden in this sign. Not all conflict is destructive. In fact, the controlled, mindful confrontation of truth is a path to mastery. Seneca said, "The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." Each time you face a necessary disagreement, each time you assert a boundary calmly and firmly, you reclaim another fragment of your dignity. And here's where curiosity tightens. Avoiding conflict seems small, almost invisible, but what comes next is far subtler, almost imperceptible, Yet it corrodes the spirit even faster than silence or people-pleasing. This fourth sign will make you question the choices you thought were harmless. It will reveal how your own thoughts may be betraying your self-respect from within. And once you see it, you'll understand why the journey to reclaim your power cannot skip a single step.
The fourth subtle sign that you are losing self-respect is constantly seeking external validation. This one is quiet, almost invisible to others, but it gnaws at your core. You post, you compare, you measure yourself by likes, approval, applause, or compliments, all the while feeling hollow inside. Cleanthes wrote, "Lead me, Zeus, and you, destiny, wherever you have assigned me. I shall follow without complaint." And yet, when you chase the approval of others, you are following not destiny, but someone else's measure of your worth. Picture a young woman sitting alone in her apartment at night, scrolling endlessly through social media. Every picture, every comment, every curated highlight from someone else's life becomes a mirror, reflecting all the ways she feels less than. Each comparison chips away at her dignity, teaching her brain that her value depends on outside perception rather than inner virtue. Neuroscience confirms this. Seeking approval triggers dopamine loops that reinforce dependence on external signals, while inner confidence atrophies. In short, your self-respect becomes hostage to other people's opinions. Think of the moments in your own life, waiting for someone to text back, hesitating to voice an idea without affirmation, measuring your day by applause or recognition. Each act may feel harmless, even human, but over time it becomes a pattern, a chain that quietly teaches your soul to shrink. The subtle cruelty is that you are training yourself to live in a world constructed by everyone else's expectations while ignoring the universe's own measure, virtue, discipline, and integrity. Here's the solution hidden in this sign. Reclaiming your self-respect begins with attention. Not attention to what others think, but to your own standards, your own values, your own internal compass. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change. For I seek truth, not my own opinion." Let your validation come from alignment with truth, not applause. This is the silent reclaiming of power, the kind that builds a fortress within, one brick at a time. And yet, external validation is only the tip of the iceberg. What comes next is subtler, hidden even from your own awareness. It hides in your habits, your reactions, and your relationships. The next sign will hit harder than any apology, any forced smile, or any chase for approval. Recognizing it will feel like staring at a reflection you didn't know existed. And it will prepare you for the fifth revelation, which is far more personal and relentless.
The fifth subtle sign that you are losing self-respect is constantly justifying your actions. Every time you explain, rationalize, or defend yourself unnecessarily, you are silently admitting that your choices are not enough. You feel compelled to prove yourself, to others, to the world, even to yourself. And each explanation chips away at the quiet authority of your presence. Epictetus reminded us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Yet modern life trains us the opposite, to always explain, to always convince, to always defend. Picture a famous Stoic philosopher walking through the agora, surrounded by critics. Every gesture, every word is scrutinized. Some are tempted to justify themselves, to argue, to defend their choices. But the true master remains silent, calm, unshaken. That is the power you are missing when you over-explain in your life. Each unnecessary justification teaches your mind that your natural worth is insufficient and that only others' understanding can validate your choices. Think about your own day. How often have you explained your decisions to people who didn't care, defended your feelings to someone who never listens, or apologized for taking a stand? Every justification reinforces an invisible chain, linking your self-respect to the approval of others rather than your own inner compass. You may feel polite, fair, or rational, but the cost is subtle yet immense. Your authority over your own life begins to dissolve. Here's the hidden truth. Real self-respect does not require explanation. Marcus Aurelius said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Each refusal to justify yourself is a step toward that inner refuge, a reclaiming of the silent power you've allowed to slip away. And here's the tension you must feel. What comes next is even deeper, even more invisible, and yet more destructive. Sign 6 will challenge the way you interact with your own thoughts, and once you recognize it, you'll understand why the previous signs were only the surface of a far greater struggle.
The sixth subtle sign that your self-respect is quietly slipping away is suppressing your true emotions. You've learned to smile when you're burning inside, to nod when you disagree, to swallow frustration, disappointment, or even grief. You tell yourself it's maturity or self-control, but the truth is far more insidious. Seneca warned, "No man can escape his own mind." And yet, so many of us try, smothering our feelings until they become strangers, until we don't even recognize ourselves in the mirror. Picture a young soldier in ancient Rome, standing at the edge of the battlefield. His heart races, fear grips his limbs, anger coils in his chest, but he must maintain composure. The world expects strength. The world expects silence. Yet, what if he learned to acknowledge his fear, to honor it quietly, without being ruled by it? That is the lesson we have forgotten. In the modern arena, work, relationships, society, we bottle our emotions, believing that restraint equals respect. But suppression is the silent thief of dignity. The more you hide, the less you own your own existence. Think back to yourself, moments when you didn't voice hurt, when tears were swallowed, when frustration was hidden behind a mask of politeness. Each time you repress your true feelings, you teach your nervous system to associate authenticity with danger. Over time, this builds an invisible cage around your spirit, a quiet tyranny of your own making. Your self-respect is not just diminished, it is imprisoned. Here is the revelation hidden in this sign. Acknowledging and expressing your emotions, mindfully and deliberately, is not weakness, it is mastery. Epictetus said, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well." Accept your emotions, honor them, let them speak through controlled action rather than endless suppression. And as you step into this awareness, you begin to approach the seventh sign, the most subtle, the most overlooked, yet the most critical of all, the one that, if unchecked, silently consumes every fragment of self-respect you thought you still held.
The seventh subtle sign that you are losing self-respect, the one that ties all the previous 6 together, is tolerating disrespect silently. This is the quietest, most insidious thief of dignity because it hides in plain sight. It begins not with shouting matches or confrontations, but with the small, almost imperceptible acts. Someone interrupts you repeatedly. A colleague dismisses your ideas. A friend belittles your boundaries, and you remain silent. You tell yourself, "It's not worth it," or "I don't want conflict." But in that choice, in that silence, you are surrendering a piece of your soul. Picture Marcus Aurelius at his court, surrounded by courtiers who plotted,
criticized, and undermined. He could have lashed out, demanded respect, or declared his authority with fury. Instead, he mastered a different art: measured response, dignified silence, and deliberate assertion of his principles. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it, he reminded himself. The power wasn't in domination, it was in refusing to let disrespect define his value. And yet, how many of us give away our dignity in silence, thinking that patience or politeness will shield us? Think back. How often have you tolerated disrespect in small ways? Maybe it's someone talking over you in meetings, dismissing your input, or taking liberties with your time and energy. Each moment is a tiny betrayal, teaching your mind that your presence is negotiable, your value optional. And the insidious part? The longer you allow it, the easier it becomes. You start to expect disrespect, to normalize it, to internalize it. By the time you realize, the fortress of self-respect you thought was strong is now riddled with cracks. Here's the hidden lesson, and it's the one that will set up your transformation. You do not have to respond with anger, shouting, or revenge. The reclaiming of self-respect begins with silent assertion, setting boundaries, walking away from disrespect, speaking truth calmly but firmly. As Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Every boundary you uphold, every act of deliberate silence in the face of disrespect, is a brick placed back in your fortress. And now, notice the pattern: over-apologizing, people-pleasing, avoiding conflict, seeking validation, over-justifying, suppressing emotions, and finally, tolerating disrespect are not isolated habits. They are threads in the same tapestry, quietly unraveling the respect you hold for yourself. You've seen the signs, you've felt the erosion, and the final step, the grand, transformative step, is about reclaiming power through a deliberate act that ties them all together. The truth is simpler, yet more profound than you could imagine, and it begins not with others, but with yourself.
Now you see the full pattern, the 7 subtle signs quietly eroding your self-respect. 1. Over-apologizing. 2. People-pleasing. 3. Avoiding conflict. 4. Seeking external validation. 5. Over-justifying. 6. Suppressing your true emotions. And 7. Tolerating disrespect silently. Each sign, seemingly small and harmless in isolation, forms a chain. Together, they weave a tapestry that convinces your mind you are less than you are. And yet, the very fact that you are seeing them now, that you recognize the erosion, is proof that the chain can be broken. Imagine yourself walking through a deserted hall, echoes of every apology you've made, every forced smile, every silent concession reverberating off the walls. You feel heavy, weighed down by years of giving your power away. And yet, in that hall, a faint light begins to glimmer. The awareness that all of this is not your fault, and all of it can be reclaimed. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." What color will you choose? Gray, from surrender and compliance, or the vibrant hue of deliberate, silent power? The journey towards reclaiming self-respect is not dramatic. It doesn't require confrontation or rage. It starts with deliberate silence in the right moments, conscious assertion of boundaries, and the refusal to let disrespect go unchecked. It begins with acknowledging your emotions rather than burying them, speaking your truth rather than justifying endlessly, and valuing yourself independently of external approval. Each small act of integrity, each moment of mindful courage is a brick in rebuilding your fortress. And here's the tension you must feel.
The real transformation is not in observing the signs, but in acting upon them. It's the quiet power you wield in moments no one else witnesses, the strength to refuse, to pause, to honor yourself. You've seen the patterns, you've felt the erosion, and soon you will understand the ultimate truth that ties all 7 signs together. The profound Stoic realization that allows you to reclaim not just your self-respect, but your silence, your dignity, and your power. The next paragraph will deliver the grand reveal, the sacred, transformative moment. It will not be flashy or loud. It will be quiet, cinematic, and eternal, leaving you altered in ways you didn't expect, yet deeply familiar. Every open loop, every subtle tension from the previous signs converges into a single truth. And when it lands, you will understand. The power you seek has always been within you, waiting for a single, deliberate act.
Here is the truth, the silent, ultimate revelation of all 7 subtle signs that have been quietly stealing your self-respect. It is not about proving yourself, forcing others to see your worth, or even reclaiming what was lost through loud gestures. The Stoics remind us again and again, real power is not given by the world. It is taken within, silently, deliberately, and without fanfare. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Every apology you've uttered unnecessarily, every moment you people-pleased, avoided conflict, sought validation, justified yourself, suppressed your emotions, or tolerated disrespect. These are not your chains. They are markers. They show you where your power has been dormant, waiting to awaken. The path to reclaiming yourself begins with silence, not the silence of submission, but the silence of authority, the silence of deliberate choice. Every unneeded word you hold back, every boundary you uphold, every emotion you honor without apology is a step toward mastery. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom, dignity, self-respect, they are born in these quiet acts. When you refuse to surrender your voice unnecessarily, when you stop seeking approval to validate your existence, and when you reject disrespect calmly but firmly, you are reclaiming the fortress of your inner world brick by brick. Imagine walking through your life carrying a calm presence that no one can shake, a voice that speaks only when necessary, a soul that bends only to principle and truth. Imagine the relief, the liberation of no longer being a slave to the subtle patterns that once dictated your every thought and action. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Once you recognize the subtle erosions of self-respect, and once you act deliberately to reclaim your inner sovereignty, the suffering stops. Not because the world changes, but because you do. You have found a stillness, a power, a clarity that no one can take away. And here is the ultimate secret, the final key to all 7 signs. Reclaiming your self-respect is not an event, it is a habit, a continuous, deliberate practice of conscious choices. Every no that feels uncomfortable, every truth spoken calmly, every boundary maintained is a stitch in the fabric of your dignity. Over time, these deliberate acts compound, quietly transforming you from someone who bends under the world's weight into someone unshakable, grounded, and serene. Cleanthes' words echo, "Lead me, Zeus, and you, destiny, wherever you have assigned me, I shall follow without complaint." True mastery is choosing how you respond and refusing to surrender the only thing no one else can take, your self-respect. This is why silence is your greatest weapon. Silence is not emptiness, it is presence.
Silence is not weakness, it is mastery. When you reclaim it, the world's noise loses its power over you. And this, finally, is the culmination of the 7 signs. Each one had been pointing to the same truth, each one a whisper that told you to stop giving away what is yours by birth: your dignity, your boundaries, your voice, your essence. As you leave this realization, understand this: the power you sought externally has always resided internally. It was never about forcing respect from others. It was always about refusing to give it away. Each deliberate act of self-respect is a declaration that your inner life cannot be bargained with, diminished, or ignored. Marcus Aurelius's reflection becomes vivid. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Take this moment. Feel it. Let it resonate in your chest. Every habit of surrender, every subtle compromise of dignity, every quiet betrayal of your own principles can be undone. One choice, one act, one boundary at a time. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is power. And that power, once reclaimed, transforms not just your life, but the way you inhabit the world itself. Perhaps the answer was never control, dominance, or proving others wrong. Perhaps it was acceptance. Acceptance of yourself, acceptance of the present moment, acceptance that the world will test you, and the sacred freedom to say, "This moment is mine. My dignity is mine. My voice is mine, and I will never surrender it unnecessarily."